So today we're going to be talking about building wealth through real estate. A little bit about me. My name is Jayden Kennedy. I am 28 years old. I am from Oshawa, Ontario, born and raised. Whoop, whoop. And I currently have an investment portfolio of 3 properties. I am a real estate broker. I've had my real estate license for 4 years now. And I'm super passionate about financial literacy and specifically educating people in our community who look like us, because in other communities, their families, they're giving them, hundreds of thousands of dollars because they've own properties in other countries over here. So I really want to help us understand the foundations and really enable us to build wealth through real estate. So what I want to do first is I want to give you guys an idea of my portfolio, and then we'll get into some strategies that I use, the strategies that my clients use, and a few key takeaways. So this is my portfolio. I bought my first property at the age of 25 for $875,000. This was in Oshawa and it was a duplex. Full transparency, I get $2,450 a month in rent from upstairs, $1,400 from downstairs. So my rental income is $3,850, but my mortgage is $4,194. So I'm actually losing about $344 a month on this property. Then we have property taxes. We have to replace the washer, dryer, dishwasher, all of those things. So I'm definitely more than negative $344. But just a fun fact or not so fun fact, when I purchased this property, back in 2022-ish, my monthly mortgage payment was actually around $3,200. Okay, then interest rates, I got variable. Interest rates went up, 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 up. My monthly mortgage went to almost $6,000. Okay, so I went from 3,000 lows to almost 6,000, which just emphasized, like, when you get into ownership, it's not always pretty. So you want to make sure that you have savings, because when my interest rate went up and my payments went up like 2-3K a month, it was not the prettiest, but that's why I still live at home with my parents, okay? So I have 3 properties. I'm blessed to be able to live at home with my family, and I had those people essentially paying off my mortgage for me, which was great. Fast forward to the age 27, I purchased this end unit townhouse here. The monthly payments are about, well, my rent that I get is $3,000. There is a maintenance fee of $266. My mortgage is $2,800, so I am negative $155. Once again, I just replaced the furnace on this property 2 days ago. Okay, so this is, once again, I'm just going to keep it real with ownership. It's one thing to purchase a property. It's another to be able to carry the property on a monthly basis. I'll give you guys a story on that after. And then this is my last property, also at the age of 27. Purchased this, closed on my birthday, which is not a good idea because a lot of stressful things happen on closing day. So my whole birthday was stressed, but it's okay because we closed on the property. The second one was $700,000. And then this third one here was $800,000. There is 2 units, so upstairs I'm charging $2,600, downstairs I'm charging $1,800. So the income is $4,400. My mortgage is actually closer to $3,500. So I'm making about $1,000 a month on that property. So finally, this property is, yes, this is the one doing me good right now. And as I go on in, my real estate journey, I'm going to be less risky, and these first 2 were very risky. So I'm positive $200 a month, okay? So this is great, minus all my expenses, okay? I'm gonna get in the next one. So, house number 1, I targeted somewhere that had 2 units to help offset my monthly expenses. Even if you're gonna move into the property, if it has 2 units, you can live in 1 unit, you can have someone giving you some rental income to help offset your monthly mortgage payments. A lot of my clients, they purchase a 2 unit. If you're okay with living in the basement, live in the basement, and you can probably charge between $800 to $1,500 more if they are living upstairs. I made about $100,000 a year, and unfortunately that was not enough to qualify for the property, so I did have to add both of my parents to the mortgage in order to qualify for this. I know that we don't all have that luxury. Keeping it real, I would say 1 out of 10 of my clients are purchasing properties on their own. The rest of my clients are purchasing properties with their friends or family members. Absolute fail, okay? I assume the tenants. This means I purchased the property, people were already living in the property, and I said, you know what, leave the people in the property, I'll take over the rental contract, and we'll be good. Now, because this is recorded, I'm not gonna get into all the details, but basically I had to pay the tenants $15,000 cash to get them out of my house. Okay, I just closed on my first property. I'm 25 years old. My down payment was like $90-something thousand. 2 weeks later, I get a call and I had to pay $15,000 to get these people out of my house. So one of the lessons that I learned, which I want you guys to learn, is I personally will not buy a property that has tenants in it. That's just because I'm scarred from this experience. But if you're going to take on the tenants, make sure that you do your due diligence. Tenants are very smart. They have fake social media profiles and, fake employers and stuff. So you want to make sure that you do a good job vetting them also. But what I like to do is also talk to, if you can, do a Zoom call or actually pull up to the address that they say they're living in. It's not the most ideal, but if they open the door, you see pets, you see that the property is messy, that will give you an idea of how they take care of your property, because they do have to put their address on the rental application. If you're working with a good realtor, they'll actually reverse search all of the references in our system, and we'll be able to confirm if the owners that they say are, their landlords actually own those properties. If they're saying Jayden's my landlord at 123 Main, and I look up 123 Main and Jayden Kennedy she's never been an owner, that could be a sign that they're lying. So that's the importance of working with a good realtor. And then another fail that I took, like I said, was taking variable as opposed to fixed. So do we all know the difference between variable and fixed rates? Basically, I'm just going to explain very briefly. With interest rates, you know how sometimes they say, the Bank of Canada interest rates went up, interest rates went down. So if you have a fixed interest rate, this means that when interest rates go up or down, your payments stay the same. But if you have a variable rate, that means your payments are going to vary. As interest rates go up, your payments are going to go up. So when I purchased my first property, interest rates were historically low. They were like 2%. And I was like, nah, I'm chilling. It's going to keep going down. And the next thing you know, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. And I'm like, this is just ghetto. Oh my goodness. But it's worth it now. House number 2. I actually purchased this property off market from a wholesaler. So what is a wholesaler? A wholesaler is someone who all day, every day, just goes and knocks on people's doors and says, hey, are you willing to sell your property? And they try to buy these properties or get a contract written under value. So this property here was worth $750,000. The wholesaler knocked on the door, said, I will pay you $600,000. Has anyone seen those we buy your house for cash signs on the roads, right? This is a wholesaler, right? And unfortunately, just being honest, most wholesalers, they do target communities that have a lot of people like us in them. You don't see too many we buy houses for cash in a lot of the more affluent neighborhoods. So that's just something to keep in mind, because these people are actually ripping us off. They're not paying us what the value of our properties are. And I'm very passionate about this. So I partner with wholesalers so that when they get a deal, I can capitalize on that. But if someone knocks on your door and says, I'll buy your house for cash, the first person you want to call is me, because I will tell you what the value of your house is. And if they're going to gyp you $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, which is what they do in order to get the contract signed, we don't want you to lose that money. So how it works is I'll knock on the door. Hey, I'll give this example. The wholesaler said, I'll give you $650,000 cash. First of all, it's not cash. The wholesaler gets a contract, goes to someone like me, Jayden, hey, I know you're a real estate investor. What will you offer for this property? I knew the property was worth $750,000. I said, I'll pay $700,000. So there's $650,000 and there's $700,000. That's a $50,000 spread. Who gets the $50K? The wholesaler. So that's why wholesalers do this, but it's harder to get access to those properties because 95% of the time, or 99%, when you knock on the door, people aren't going to want to sell their house. And you have to find the person who not only is open to selling their house, but doesn't know the value of their property, okay? So I was able to purchase this house for $700,000. It was an N unit, best property in the area, so that's why I decided to buy it. I did have higher income, but because I already had another property in my name, my debt was too high, so I had to add my dad to the pre-approval again. Because when you go to buy a house, they're like, okay, Jayden makes $100K, this percentage is gonna go towards her house, this percentage is already going towards her other house. So because I had too much debt to my name, I had to add my father again in order to qualify for this next property. Now, it is a condo townhouse. Okay, a lot of people as their first properties, sometimes they shy away from condos because there are condo fees. But me, because I'm already traumatized from what happened in my first property, I said, you know what, if there's a big issue, it's gonna go through the condo board. So I said, let me do that. It also included water. Okay, so that's something that I'm okay with. If you are gonna be buying a condo in general, my rule of thumb is try to stay under $500 a month in maintenance fees or less. $500 a month or less. Now, the reason why I say this is because as condos get older, maintenance fees tend to go up. And as maintenance fees go up, people's budgets go down. If your condo fee is $500, it goes up to $600, you go to sell, someone's budget is going to be lower because that $100 is going to be seen as debt on a monthly basis. Now, the caveat, if you're purchasing a property where in the condo fees they include water, heat, hydro, etc., then that might be justifiable because those expenses are going to be covered on a monthly basis. Now, the cool thing about this townhouse is because it's an end unit and it has a separate entrance in the back, I can actually make a basement apartment in that to have 2 units again. I don't know if you guys are starting to notice a trend, but I like to have multiple income streams, at least the potential, in order to purchase one of these properties. And then the last one was a blessing. I knew someone before I purchased who said, I am looking to rent a property in Ajax. My budget is $3,000 a month. I said, wow, look at God. I bought the house. She's in there. Everything is good. Like I said, I did just have to replace the furnace, but peace of mind knowing that person and knowing she's going to take care of my property after having had a really bad experience was totally worth it for me. And then my third house was the seller bought the house, they did renos, and then they started pulling equity out, right? So there's like lines of credit, etc. They purchased it low, they did renos, but the issue is the more that you pull money out of your house, the higher your monthly payments get. So the monthly payments were too high, they went to a private lender, okay? So when you go to buy a house, there's A lenders. This is like, the banks. Then we have the B lenders. Some of them are banks, but they're gonna charge you higher interest rates. This is because you're not gonna be a cookie cutter type of application. Do we have any entrepreneurs in here? Raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur. Okay, we have a couple. Unfortunately, as entrepreneurs, we're not necessarily seen as cookie cutters, so we might have to go with the B lender, which we'll get into after. And yes, so what happened was, this is why social media presence is a big thing too. These people called me. They said, Jayden, we need to sell this house. We are very desperate to sell. This is the number we want. I said, okay, cool. So they came to interview me as a realtor, okay? I pulled up to the house. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can sell the house for what they want, but I'm gonna submit them an offer before they even talk to other realtors, right? So I submitted an offer. They're like, no way you're gonna buy this house? I was like, yeah, no problem, I'll buy this house, okay? So I bought it, yay, awesome. Then I close, and then I realized that the electrical, basically you can't rip off walls when you're doing inspections, right? But basically the entire house was done backwards. So guess what? I get a quote for $40,000. You want to redo your electrical? $40,000. Thankfully, my dad, he's in the skilled trades. He called a couple favors, ended up costing me about $4,000, okay? So that is the real MVP, but that is a crisis averted for sure. The property has 2 units. So there's an upstairs apartment and there's a downstairs apartment. They were Airbnb-ing it out for $1,800 a month. So I knew that I could get the mortgage income plus the $1,800. Now, I purchased a side split, okay? Side split means that there's a level, a level, a level, a level, and sometimes a level. So what I did is I actually cut off one of the upper levels and added it to downstairs. Now, the reason I did this is because a lot of people who are renting basements, they stay away from the basement rental because it feels like a basement. But if I can add an upper level to that basement apartment, oh my gosh, I listed in Oshawa, this is in Oshawa, the rental market is slow right now. I listed the property yesterday. I had 30 showings on the property in 2 days. Okay, which is crazy, right? So I have so many tenants to choose from, which is amazing, but that's because strategically I told my parents, well, actually, they told me I can't take credit, it's being recorded. They said, let's open this floor up, let's put up a wall, make a bedroom upstairs, so then the tenant won't feel like they're in the basement. Right? And that's what we did there. I always recommend buying the worst house on the best street, which is what I did. This is a very highly sought after street. At the peak, the houses were selling for 1.2, 1.3. I was able to purchase it for $800,000, did rentals in 2 months, and now it's worth at the very least $900,000, probably closer to $950,000. And I might move into it one day too. So we'll see what happens depending on, where real estate brings me. And then this property, all the lenders are like, Jayden, you have way too much debt. We're not giving you money. So I ended up going with a B lender. I had to have a little bit of a higher interest rate. But once you run out, I'd say once you buy 2 or 3 properties, you're no longer going to be able to get access to like the best lenders and the best rates. You are going to have to pivot to a different lender. But at the end of the day, the math is making sense for me. I'm now cash flow positive. So I will continue to purchase my properties this way. So what we're gonna learn today, why people choose real estate, securing financing, some investment strategies, the home buying process, expenses that come with owning a home. I've already listed a couple for you. Places many people are buying, and many tips in between. Okay, so why real estate? 9 out of 10 millionaires build and maintain their wealth through real estate. We're not going to talk, some other people probably talked about even the power and ownership, just in general with your business, etc. Today we're just going to be talking about real estate, but this is why I am so passionate about it. It's also an investment you can live in, right? Does anyone here invest in crypto? Hands up if we do crypto. Okay, good for you. So I did the whole crypto thing on 2 different platforms, got finessed the first time, forgot my numbers the second time, so I got locked out. So I am not a crypto person, and the thing with stocks and crypto is it could maybe one day go to zero. Now, I highly doubt that. I'm going to try to get into Bitcoin because I've educated myself now, but just with real estate, this is an investment that you can live in. You can have a roof over your head. That gets me into the next point, security versus renting. If we're keeping it real, a lot of the highest paying jobs in the GTA are in the downtown core. Who owns the majority of the condos in the downtown core? Other races. So it is very hard as a Black person to get into a quality rental downtown unless we have someone who's okay with renting to Black people. It just is what it is. I had clients, I don't do too many rentals being honest. They both made over 100,000. They both had over 800 credit scores. They were willing to pay a year up front, and they kept getting rejected. So it got to the point where this is a safe space. I started looking at the owners' names, and we strategically targeted certain units, right? Because we were so unsuccessful. So if more of us can get into ownership, more of us, I try my best to rent to Black people because I understand all of the barriers that we face. And this is obviously, there's levels to this, it's systemic, it's harder for us to get into ownership based off of, certain things. But if I can make a difference and, empower people in our community, that's what I'm gonna do. And that's the mindset that a lot of my clients have also. You don't have to worry about your landlord potentially kicking you out, increasing rents, etc., because you own the property. Also, values double on average every 10 years in the GTA. If you bought a house, 10 years ago for $500,000, it could be worth $1 million today, and I'll get into statistics after. You can put as low as 5% down. A lot of people think you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to get into real estate. That's actually not the case, and I'm gonna show you guys after the numbers. Median homeowner net worth, this is from 2 years ago, but you're looking at $685,000. The median renter net worth is $24,000. So once again, this just shows you, if you want to build your net worth, ownership is definitely where it's at. Also cash flow, so now I'm finally basically breaking even after property taxes, all of that stuff. And then inflation hedging, right? Because as time goes by, especially with what's happening with the States right now, our dollar value is going down. So you want to invest your money in places that's going to outpace inflation and all of these other barriers that get placed on us. So a 10-year perspective. And this is Toronto average house prices, 2014 to 2024. The average house price was $556 in 2014. Minimum down is $30K. 20% down, $111,000. Okay. Fast forward to 2024, you're looking at 1.1 million, a minimum down of $221,000, and also 20% down to 21 because at that time you needed 20% down on a $1 million house or higher. So the difference. In 10 years of your minimum down payment, $191,000, okay? Whose income is going up by $191,000 in 10 years? It's absolutely ridiculous. So sometimes I have conversations with my clients and their grandparents or their parents, and their parents like, oh yeah, wasn't that hard? It's like, yeah, well, respectfully, look at the numbers, right? It's hard. So if you're in the position to not charge your children rent or give them discount on rent so they can save money, you can enable them to build wealth like you. And when they have kids, because God knows what prices are going to be when they have kids, they will be in the position to help them. So a lot of the conversations that I have is actually with my clients and people around them and showing them the numbers are not the same. You need to have that much saved. $200K, it's ridiculous. But the caveat is that the average first-time home buyer that I work with, their purchase price is around $700,000. So that means that their minimum down is going to be $45K, okay? So this is as of 2024. This has changed. This is a big move that the government made. You needed to put 20% down on anything $1 million or higher. 5% on the first 500,000, 10% on anything between 501,000 to 999, and once we hit the $1 million mark, we needed 20% down. So if we were to purchase a $500,000 house, you're looking at $25,000 down. If we were to purchase a $700,000 house, it's going to be the 500,000 times 5, and then it's going to be 200,000 times 10, which is going to be 25 plus 20 is 45,000. And for a $1 million house, because it is 20%, we're looking at 200,000. Does this math make sense right now? Before I get a little more complex. Okay, perfect. Does anyone look at properties on like realtor.ca, House Sigma, anything like that? Has anyone seen a property not listed but sell for like $999,999? Yes, okay. I'm gonna give you the T on this one. There's actually a reason for that. Our minimum down at $1 million used to be $200,000. If I buy a house for $999,999, that means I'm paying $500 on the first 5%, or you know what I'm saying? For $499 times 10 is $49,000. So the minimum down on a $999,999 house is $75,000. That dollar saved them $125,000. Okay? I'm telling you, it's smart. But the government, 2025, this is what you guys need to know. Okay? Minimum down payment, first $500,000, still 5%. Between $500,000 to $1.499, it's going to be 10%, okay? And 1.5 and higher is now 20% down. So the government did this because they said, shoot, you need to save a lot of money in order to buy a house. A lot of us don't have the cash to buy. So now they're making it easier for us to buy a house because for a $1.2 million house, now we need $95,000. Okay? This looks great, but we have to keep in mind, if we're putting $95,000 down, we're mortgaging a lot more, which means we're going to be paying a lot more interest down the line, and our monthly payments are also going to be higher. Okay? So I saw a lot of people reaching out, DM, Jayden, this is amazing, this is amazing. Yes, but we have to make sure that you can carry it on a monthly basis, because the last thing we want is for you to buy this house. 3 months down the line, you're saying, Jayden, I need to sell. And realtors cost when you go to sell your property, right? So you're gonna be losing $50,000, $60,000. So I really wanna emphasize, make sure whenever you're talking to a realtor or mortgage professional, the first thing I do is make sure you can afford the mortgage on a monthly basis. I have a client who got pre-approved for 1.2 mil, but her monthly budget is $2,500, which means we're sticking at the $500,000 price point. Some realtors would say, oh, 1.2 mil, let me go get a big paycheck. And then all of a sudden, you don't know the numbers associated with that monthly payment, and you're in a bad position. So make sure you understand your monthly payments associated with your mortgage. I don't think I have it in my presentation, but for first-time homebuyers, the government is now allowing you 30 years as opposed to 25 years to pay off your mortgage. This has actually made a really big difference for my clients. I was thinking that the government was trying to finagle a little bit, but if you do it strategically, this can save you hundreds of dollars on a monthly basis. And so for a $1.5 million house, your minimum down is $300,000. To give you perspective, 2024 versus 2025, minimum down payments. Okay, so as you guys can see, it is a significant difference, but once again, we gotta make sure we can afford our monthly mortgage payments. Okay, because my house, $875, I'm looking at about $4,000 a month right now, right? So we just have to keep perspective. Just make sure everyone catches that. Okay. Securing financing. So I showed you guys the numbers. Now let's talk about how you are going to get into a property. Number one, we're going to want to have a credit score of 680 or higher. Does anyone here check their credit score? Yes. Is anyone brave enough to yell out where they check their credit score? You don't need to tell me I don't need the score. I just need to know where we are finding the score. Borrowell, Credit Karma, Equifax, beautiful. Okay, so if you guys want to know your legit credit score, you want to look at TransUnion or Equifax, okay? When you go to buy a house, it's usually a combination of the two. You can use TD, Scotia, all of those things, but it might not necessarily look at the exact same variables as the lenders will, which is going to be a combination of TransUnion and Equifax. A history of consistent employment. A rule of thumb that we use is 2 years of consistent employment to give them the confidence that you're going to be able to sustain your employment and be able to make your monthly payments. Of course, there are caveats. I do have some clients who've had the same job for 1 year, or they've been in the same industry for multiple years, but they've been jumping around. As long as we can tell a good story to the lender, you will be okay. Tax returns, okay? I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and they don't file their taxes. Okay? Or they file their taxes, but they have a lot of write-offs. Now, the issue is people come to me, yeah, Jayden, I make 200K. I'm like, okay, sick, you're gonna get a nice house. And then we run the numbers, and they write off 180,000 of the 200,000, which is okay until you wanna buy a house, right? When you go to buy a house, they're gonna look at 200K, subtract 180K, you're making $20,000 a year. $20,000 times 4 or 5, we're looking at about $800,000 to $100,000 to purchase a property. Where are we buying a house for 800? Does anyone know? If you know, let me know. Okay, right? That's what I'm saying. So your write-offs can hurt you. So what I would say is if you have an idea, I want to buy in 3 or 4 years, get in contact with a realtor and a tax professional to identify the type of property you're looking for. I will then tell you, this is what purchase price range you're looking at. Okay, how much income do I need to declare in order to reach that price point? So make sure, just know your write-offs could potentially work against you. Also, your proof of funds. I was going through my client list, and most of my clients, the majority last year, were Nigerian, which is actually so amazing. And I helped some of you guys from last year, so kudos to you guys. But proof of funds. I find that a lot of people who come here, we get money from overseas, which is okay. But the money has to be in our bank account, depending on the situation, at least 60 to 90 days. Okay, because they need to be able to track the funds. So if you guys want to go buy a house today, you need to have your down payment funds in your account or you're going to have an issue. My clients and I, we tried a thing where one day before the 60 days, and the lender says you need to extend your closing by a day. Okay, so you need to make sure that you have your funds in your account for that amount of time. And then good income to debt ratio. So that's sort of what I alluded to before. 36% debt is sort of where we're sitting in order to make them comfortable enough to lend you money. Because if you have too much debt, then they're not gonna be happy with that. Raise your hand if we lease or finance a vehicle. Do we lease or finance a vehicle? We all own our vehicle. Okay, we have a few lease financing, perfect. So what I wanna tell you about that is for every $500 a month approximately that we finance a vehicle, our pre-approval is probably gonna go down by about $100,000. Okay, it's already hard enough to get qualified for that. If I make 100K, my pre-approval is between $400,000 to $500,000. If I have that car lease, that's gonna bring me between, maybe $450,000 to $350,000. So you wanna make sure that that debt is taken care of. Do we have anyone here who has student loans? Yes, okay, we have a few student loans. So what I would say, okay, cool, it's all good, is that you want to have your payments in repayment when you go to buy a house, okay? Because what's gonna happen is the lender is going to take a certain percentage of your student loan as opposed to how much you're paying back, and that percentage is usually way higher than what your minimum payments would be. So if you wanna max out your pre-approval, you want to start repaying your debts. On that same, guys, I know I have so much information. Hopefully, we will stick to this hour. But what I did want to say too is that with your debts, they don't look at how much debt you have necessarily. It's how much of your debt is going towards payments on a monthly basis. So if I have a student loan of 80K, but my payments are $100 a month, that is okay. You can still purchase a property with debt, but we just have to make sure, even though we get pre-approved, we want to make sure we can carry all of our debts on a monthly basis. How your credit score is calculated, okay? 35% is loan repayment history. Jayden has a credit card. How often is she paying it back? Is she always on time? That's the biggest one. 30% is credit utilization. That's the second biggest one. Jayden has a credit card with a $100 limit. You want to stay at 30% usage or less to max out that 30%, okay? If you have 40% usage, this could negatively impact you. My next topic. If the bank asks you if you want a credit limit increase and you are responsible with your money, I recommend taking the increase. The reason why I say this is, number one, it's better to have access to credit and not need it than need credit and not have access to it, right? Additionally, if a rainy day comes and you go to the bank, can I have a credit limit increase? It's not gonna happen simultaneously or instantaneously, right? You're gonna have to get approved and all of those things, which could take a few days, and that could negatively impact your credit because they are gonna run your credit. If they offer you a credit limit increase, odds are it's not gonna negatively impact your credit. You're gonna have access to more credit, and that's gonna decrease your utilization. So this is just to give you guys a bit of perspective as to what you should expect at different price points. Like I said, the numbers are gonna be a bit lower because interest rates have gone down, and if you opt for the 30-year amortization, that will reduce your payments by, I'd say between $200 to $300 a month also. And then I also put property taxes in there, okay? Because property taxes, they do sneak up on you. You can roll them into your monthly mortgage payments if you'd like to do that, if your lender allows you to do so. But I do pay my property taxes on a quarterly basis. So if buying an investment property, I was told that some people want to buy investment properties, so we're just going to get into that a little bit right now. If you are going to be buying investment property, you're most likely going to need to put 20% down. Okay, if we are not going to be moving into the property, we are probably going to need 20% down. We are also going to have higher home insurance premiums because it's considered higher risk for the insurer. You're also going to have higher interest rates because, once again, it is considered higher risk for your lender. You're also going to have higher maintenance costs, right? Because the tenants are living in there, wear and tear. You might have to replace certain things that for you, it's livable, but for the tenants, they might deem it non-livable. And then you also are going to have to account for vacancies, right? Someone might rent the property and then they say, you know what, the term's up, I want to move somewhere else. You're going to have to take into consideration vacancies. When I purchase a property, or any of my clients do, I say budget for around 3 months of no rental income, and then you can proceed from there. That's typically how long it takes me to find a client or a tenant, but that's because I am very thorough, because I don't want my clients to experience what I did in the past. So how to put 20% less on an investment property, okay? If you want to put less than 20% down, there's a couple ways that you can legally do that, okay? So number one is buy a multi-unit property that is owner-occupied, okay? So this is buy a duplex, okay? We're moving into upstairs or we're moving into downstairs and we have someone living upstairs. You can put less than 20% down on that property. Or someone like me, I purchased my first property, I moved into it, right? And then I moved out of it into my second property, but then I simultaneously was chilling at my parents' house. You know what I'm saying? So there's different ways to, I know this is recorded, but you know, it's okay. And then if you do not work 100% remote, the property has to be within a reasonable driving distance from your job, right? So if you work in Toronto and you're buying a property in Windsor, we can't just say that it's owner occupied, because the lender's gonna be like, how are you driving to and from work every day, right? So unfortunately, we've tried that before and like, we just look crazy. Like we look crazy. So you just want to make sure you're good on that front, or they're going to ask you to put 20% down. So different ways to invest. So these are the ways that my clients are investing in properties. So number one is end user. Number two is buy and hold rental. 3 is flip. 4 is BRRRR. 5 is short-term rental. And then pre-construction in other provinces, which we are going to get into. We're going to get into all of them right now. So as an end user, this is you're purchasing the property with the plans of living in the home yourself, okay? So the pros are, number one, long-term equity. So the property going up in value over time as you live in it, you do renos, or you simply own the property. And as I said, on average, real estate does double every 10 years. Don't know if we're gonna see that same stat right now because we did have COVID and, you know, the prices spiked and all of that. But historically, you know, real estate has gone up. And we do see that prices are slightly starting to go up a little bit more now, just because as interest rates go down, home prices go up, people's budgets are higher, and a lot of buyers who are on the sidelines feel more confidence in purchasing a property because they feel like their monthly payments are going to be less than they were before. Stability, so no rent increases or landlord restriction, and then, you know, just dream fulfillment and pride of ownership. Now, some of the cons are limited liquidity, right? If I want to pull money out of my property, if I don't have a lot of equity, the money is just stuck in the property. So I don't have too many things I can do in order to pull those funds out. Next is going to be ongoing maintenance and expenses. And then also delayed appreciation. So depending on what you guys do with the property, if you don't do anything to the property and you just wait on appreciation, could take 3 or 4 years for the property to go up enough in value for you to take money out of it and do something else with it. Buy and hold rental. So this is the strategy that I mostly use, right? And this is buying a property as a rental and holding it long term. So the pros is potential steady cash flow once you get, you know, everything balanced out there. Long-term appreciation, so holding the property over time, not flipping it, value going up, and then using that money to do something else. And then also tax benefits from expenses, right? So a couple of things that I write off are like the interest on my mortgage, if I have to do any renovations, if I lose money on a monthly basis from my rent, like my first property, I'm taking in less rent than my mortgage, I can write that stuff off on my taxes. That is not tax advice, okay? Cons. Ongoing management, right? You got to take care of the property. I have now outsourced property management to someone else because it's too much. Someone calls me, Jayden, the air conditioning is going on, off. I have another tenant calling me for something else. So you want to logistically, do I want to be a landlord? And if not, am I going to pay a property manager? Property managers could cost you between 6 to 15% of your rental income on a monthly basis. But for me, having peace of mind, not having to listen to these people complain about everything, it's like I will pay that 6 to 15% all day, any day. Vacancies and potential tenant issues, and then also needing to have the down payment because, like I said, most of the time you are going to need 20% unless you're moving into the property for however long you move into the property, okay? Flip. So you purchase a house for a low price, renovate, and sell for a gain. Now, this is considered high risk in my opinion. Pre-COVID, this was great. Houses were not cheap, but way more affordable. Post-COVID, it's way harder. The interest rate, it's just very volatile. I do not recommend flipping houses right now. But you buy the property, right? You do the rentals, you sell it. You're going to pay capital gains most likely, so you need to have a good enough spread. The pros, potential quick profits, doesn't require long-term capital usually, and adds value to properties, right? Someone is moving into the property, it's now renovated, you're rehabilitating essentially the community. Now, some of the cons are high risk due to market shifts. When people bought properties to flip pre-COVID, they bought, let's say, $400,000 or $500,000. The longer they took to do the rentals, the higher the property price got because the market was so hot. You could have bought a very terrible property, held on to it, 2 years down the line, it's worth $200K more just because the market was so hot. But now it's the opposite. You purchase a property, and because prices were going down so quickly, because rates were going up so quickly, people were deploying 50, 60, 70K into properties, then they're going to sell, and instead of purchasing for 700, selling it for $1 million, they're now purchasing for 700, selling for 600,000. Right? You have mortgages, probably borrowing money from other people. You have those rentals, and sometimes you're in so much debt, you actually can't offload the property, right? Unless you want to give it to the bank and declare bankruptcy. So those are things to consider. That's why I don't want people flipping right now. Contractors and potential, do we have any contractors in here? Is anyone here a contractor? No. Okay, yes. Are we quality contractors? Should we plug you right now? Yes? You're laughing. Okay. No, okay. Here's the thing. Contractors in real estate, I find they're good for one job, and then they disappear, right? Their texting skills, their communication skills, their budgeting skills, they're not necessarily the best all the time, right? There's the anomaly. We have, this gentleman right here. He's a great contractor. But you just want to make sure you find a solid contractor because you want to stay on your timelines too, and you want to make sure they're not stealing money from you, okay? And then last is potential tax implications. So you could be subject to capital gains, right? Your gains are going to add to your personal income, and that could actually deplete all of the profits that you had in the first place. So make sure you talk to an accountant and run the numbers also prior to proceeding with that. Now, here's the burr. This is like what a lot of so I am, okay, I'll let you guys take the picture real quick, but, okay, I'm going to go back just real quick. I'm team buy and hold rental. A lot of my investors are team burr, okay? They're buying a property that needs to be renovated. They're renovating it. They're getting renters in there. They get rental income. They go to the bank. They say, hey, I bought this for $500,000. It's worth $700,000. Give me $100,000. They pull the $100,000 out, and then they buy another property. Then they do renovations. Then they put tenants in. They say, hey, the property's worth $200,000 more. Give me money, put towards a down payment. So a lot of serious investors, they buy undervalued properties. They do the rentals. They put tenants in them. They go to the bank. They ask for more money. They put that money in a down payment on another property. And by doing this, once again, this is not tax advice, but because we're not disposing of the property, we don't really necessarily have to worry about capital gains and all of those things. Eventually down the road, you're gonna have to figure something out, but this is what a lot of my investors are using. Number one, it's very scalable, right? You can buy a lot of properties quickly if you do it the right way, and it uses leverage to reinvest capital, right? You only need one down payment. The first down payment, do the work, and then the work will get you your remaining down payments, and then it forces the property value up. You're buying a property, you're increasing the value, that there is also going to be money. You might put $20K into the rentals, it ends up being worth $100,000 more, that's $80K that you just made on the property. And then some of the cons. It requires significant knowledge. Are we good on time? 10 minutes? Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay. We're gonna do like 2 more slides real quick and then I'm gonna answer questions. So it requires significant knowledge and upfront work. You gotta know your numbers in order to make sure that you're successful. Overestimation of after repair value. A lot of investors think that they're going to make 100K, but they actually only make 50K. What are the implications of that? And then cash flow challenges during refinance. So if you pull money out of your property, that might impact your monthly mortgage payments and make them higher. So can you afford the higher monthly mortgage payments if we're gonna be taking money out to redeploy that into another property? Short-term rental, so putting your property on platforms like Airbnb for rent. Pros, higher income potential, can use the property personally when you're not renting it out, and strong demand in tourist areas. But then some cons are you're highly dependent on location and seasonality, right? For example, Niagara Falls, a lot of people come, when the weather's nicer. When it's colder, you're not gonna have as many people, so you have to take that into consideration. High management efforts and turnover costs, and then regulations and restrictions limiting rental potential, right? The government is catching on to all of these people making a lot of money from Airbnb, etc. They're going to want to get their fair share, right? So a lot of regulations and restrictions, licensing requirements, etc. are coming into play. You might be in the clear right now, 5 years down the line, the government, comes in, sort of puts you in a bad position, and then you're going to have to be able to pivot. Pre-construction in other provinces, I have a lot of people buying in Calgary right now, so, purchase prices are significantly lower, so a lot of people are doing that too. Some of the pros are you're buying where you can qualify and afford. So some people rent here, buy where they can afford, which is another province. There's potential for significant appreciation once the property is done in, 2 to 5 years, the value could be higher, and then beneficial deposit structures, right? Cons are market uncertainty. You could buy it for, 500K today, which is a good deal. Down the line, the property's only worth 450. It was a good deal at the time, but now it's not. Once it's completed and once you sign a contract, you got to stick with that contract. Lack of control, right? There could be developer delays. You don't know. Could be a lot of fees at the end, and then also managing the property. And then just a bonus here is wholesaling. So I sort of spoke of that before. I personally would not wholesale, but I would be, if you guys start wholesaling, please save my number and call me when you have deals, because I have people who will buy the deals, including myself, okay? And it's very lucrative. So you secure a contract to buy a house below market price and sell it to someone else for a profit. The pros, it really requires low capital on your end. All you're getting is someone to sign a contract saying, hey, I'll sell you the house at this price, but you got to find the person to buy the property at a higher price than what you got it for. But also you have to have stipulations in your agreement that you are able to back out of the deal for any reason within a certain amount of closing. Quick profits, you can make quick money, and you also avoid the risks with home ownership, right? You don't have to worry about roofs, furnace, all of this. You're literally just flipping a contract. Now, some of the cons are it can be time consuming. In order to actually find someone who will sell you their property under market value, it might take you months, a year. But once you get that person, that's when you can start to get the ball rolling. Issues if you don't understand contract law. You got to make sure that you're working with someone who understands contracts. And then lastly, reliance on buyers. You could get the perfect house for the perfect price, but if you're not able to find a buyer, then you're basically going to give them the contract back. So that's why, once again, contact me and I will find you a buyer, okay? And then we're all winners. So I don't want to get too deep into. This is the last thing I'll get into, and then you guys can ask me questions. My favorite asset class is multifamily, okay? The benefits, diversified rental income. You have multiple tenants paying you rent. God forbid one of them loses their job, the other tenant can carry the weight and pay your mortgage or help pay your mortgage for you. You can leverage rental income potential to get pre-approved for more. Okay, if I make $100,000, the property I'm buying can make me $5,000 a month in rent. I can go to CIBC, TD, whatever, say, I'm gonna make $5,000 in rent a month, add that rent to my income to get a higher pre-approval, and they'll do that, but typically it's only a portion of the rental income. Next is increased cash flow, forced appreciation. So if you purchase a property and then you make it a 2-unit from a 1-unit, if it has the separate entrance, or you add a separate entrance for 10K, that could also increase your money. Reduce vacancy risks, right? Less odds of units being vacant or the whole house if you have multiple people in it. Easier exit strategy to just get rid of the property, and then also house hacking. So this is where you can live in one unit and then someone else can live in the other, and then you're good to go. Okay, so I'm gonna end my presentation there because I know we might have a couple questions. Okay, so yes, thank you very much. We're done. Do we have any questions? Yes.
So I have 2 questions.
Okay.
So in Ontario right now, the rental, the tenants right, whatever is very crazy.
Yes.
So how do you go about screening the right
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so he's asking how I screen my tenants in order to make sure that I don't have, basically professional squatters. So the first thing is I want like employment letters, pay stubs, references, previous places of, where you lived, etc. And I cross-reference everything. So if you say that your employer is blah, 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 I'm going on LinkedIn, I'm finding, your boss, I'm finding your coworkers, I'm messaging your boss, I'm messaging your coworkers. I don't care. I'm not gonna have someone bad in my unit. I'm also potentially going to their property in person to see how they maintain just even the outside, to give me an idea of how they maintain the outside of my property. I'm also doing, like I said, the reverse searches on their landlords to make sure that the math is making sense. There's also a lot of platforms right now. One of them is Open Room. It's called Open Room, and if someone's having an issue with the tenant, they can actually upload, like a bunch of landlords came together to create this platform, they can upload it, and I can search Jayden Kennedy in there, and it'll show me the outstanding issues I have with previous landlords. So you also want to comb through that. You also want to run your own credit reports. They might give you a credit report, but you want to make sure that you run the credit just to make sure that the numbers are what they are presenting you. And then also, when you talk to the references, always try to cross-reference the information that they give you, right? So I always ask the references, what does she do for work, right? One may say, oh yeah, she's a bottle girl. The other says, oh yeah, she works at YMCA, right? And on her application, she says she works at McDonald's. Right? It's like these things are not aligning, so those are red flags. It's just having conversations with people in their sphere and really doing due diligence online. I also do it might be a little much, but Google reverse image search, right? Like I search people's images too, just to make sure that it's not like a fake account because, like I said, I've experienced that in the past. Yes. What was your other question? Great question. So he asked if I put $50,000 into renovations in my property, am I going to get $50,000 out? So my rule of thumb is I want at least, I want to make 66% on my renos. So that means if I'm doing a renovation, I want to make sure that I'm getting 66% of that at least or more. So for example, the best things to reno in a house: kitchen, bathrooms, repaint. Those are the 3 highest ROI things, but that's why you have to talk to a professional. Me putting quartz countertops in a house in a crappy area might not really increase the value because people who are moving in that area don't know the difference between different types of countertops, right? So you gotta make sure that you're making the right decisions in the right areas, and that's where, respectfully, realtors, that's what their job is to do, is analyze different markets. So I'd recommend talking to a realtor and getting their advice. One of my properties, I got medium renos because I'm if I do too many renos, I'm not gonna get the return on that investment. Yeah, so you gotta talk to someone, but it's never guaranteed. Like the flips, sometimes people put 100K in and then they only make 50K, right? That's what we don't wanna do. Yes?
You talked about your Ajax property.
Yes.
You have someone that you know.
Yes.
That's all well and good.
Yes.
I know you probably have an agreement or whatever.
Yes.
What happens if they default on the agreement? You know them, you don't want to sue.
Okay, so this is a great, I don't want to get TMI here, but she asked, okay, you know the person who's in your property, what happens if they stop paying? It just so happens that the person who I rent to, I use their services for something. So you can stop paying rents, but you can give me your services and I might stop paying for your services, right? So that's the trade-off. That's how I was safe on that front. I wouldn't necessarily say it's always the best to put someone in that you know, because that can create a lot of tension. It's just I know I'm good. Yes, I have that reassurance. Okay, we'll do one more question. 2 minutes. Okay, we'll see how many questions we can, probably just one. Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. So he was asking about investing in the States. I'm going to be completely honest. I do refer my clients out to American realtors who want that. But what I would say the biggest obstacle that people face is opening the bank accounts. And a lot of people do try to get social insurance numbers to avoid tax implications. Because if you're buying property in the States and then you live in Canada, both governments are going to find out about this and they're going to want to get their fair share. So I would say just make sure that you get a bank account out there and that you figure out how you're going to do it. Most of my clients who are buying in the States, if I'm being honest, they're silent partners, which means, hey, I'll give you 50K, you put everything in your name, and then I get, a certain percentage of the profits. But there is volatility when it comes to your taxes. So I would make sure that you talk to your accountant. Like I said, I wish I could give you more information, but I know that people have faced those two barriers when it comes to buying in the States. But you guys see these TikToks, like Atlanta, Houston, all these things, you can buy big houses for like 300K. So the numbers are different. You can get different types of loans, etc. So it's way more affordable to buy out there. But because we are not residents, we do get a bit of a slap on the wrist logistically from both countries. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, she's just waving. Okay, one question. Yes. Yeah. So she asked if people buy land, which is a great question. So when you're purchasing land, you got to be careful because depending on where the land is located, lenders might not even give you money. If they feel like the soil underneath or it's too close to certain things, you might have to buy that with 100%. What I would say is, because I don't specialize in land purchases, because you have to understand like the topography and all of that, but typically your down payment is going to be closer to at least 50%. So you're going to have a lot more capital. And then not only that, you're probably going to want to borrow money from the lender in order to build your property, which could also be more risky because it's risky for them because there's no infrastructure on that land. So if you are to buy land, you are going to get significantly less in funding. You're going to have to bring a lot more to the deal. But I do have some clients who are purchasing land and then building custom houses on it. But you're just going to need a lot more capital than simply, I'm just saying, purchasing a dilapidated property, taking it down, and then building a house on that. But even if it's too dilapidated, the lender might not want to give you money for that also. Does that help a bit? Yeah? Okay, cool. Okay, yes, we'll shut it. Okay, last one. You made it. Yes. Is a property management fee deductible? So that is, at the end of the day, it is an expense. Yes. And honestly, like my tax person, we're very clean with how we do stuff, but there's a lot of different things that you can try to deduct. Like even if you live in the property and some of it is your office, even though you have multiple offices, like there's things you can do to reduce your taxable income on that front too. Yeah.